next item on the agenda is to canvass the votes for the trustee election of May 10th. Dr. Myers?
Sure. In front of you, I believe you have a copy of the statement for the trustee election as far as the voting was concerned. In position 6, Sky Hamilton had a total of 322 votes, of which 100 were paper ballot, 67 electronic, and then in early voting there was 155 paper ballots as well. In position 7, Tammy Tullis had paper ballots on the day of election of 87. Electronic ballots were 70, and then in early voting there was 140 paper ballots cast for her for a total of 297. J.R. Ronnie Lewis had 75 paper ballots on the day of regular election, 25 electronic ballots, and 74 paper ballots in the early voting for a total of 174 total ballots. Number of voters were 260 on the regular election day, and then 216 early voting for a total of 476 with one provisional ballot. So I would submit those to the board as Ms. Sky Hamilton for position 6 is the winner, and position 7 being Ms. Tammy Tullis is the winner in that position.
Do I have a motion concerning the election results?
So be it.
And a second, please.
Second.
Any other questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor? Motion passes 4-0. The next item on the agenda is the certificates of election and oath of office for the newly elected board members.
Ms. Gross, are you ready? Ms. Tullis?
Raise your right hand, please. Do you, Tammy Tullis, and Sky Hamilton, solemnly swear that you have not directly or indirectly paid, offered, promised to pay, contributed, or promised to contribute any money or thing of value, or promised in public office or employment for the giving or withholding of a vote at the election in which you were elected, so help you God? Can you will the office? Do you, Tammy Tullis, Sky Hamilton, solemnly swear that you will faithfully execute the duty of the office of school trustee for Cleveland Independent School District of the state of Texas, and will to the best of your ability preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States and of this state, so help you God?
Man, you were? I forgot Sky. Call the game.
Which end do you all want? There to the superintendent.
We can move around like here.
Come back to the board.
I just quite glad to be
3
here.
more years.
I didn't mean to forget you a single time.
What?
I didn't mean to forget you on that day. It's just nice to be here.
Oh, I didn't think anything of it, Dr. It takes much more to offend me.
next item on the agenda is for the board to consider the reorganization of the board, electing officers. What is the pleasure of the board at this time?
I'll make a motion that you, President, Christie, Vice President. Is that how we
To
do
keep
it?
the officers as
Keep it the
is?
same.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Okay.
You have to keep me as secretary too, Kelly. Is that okay?
Yeah. Oh, I forgot about that position. Sorry. Didn't mean to offend you.
Very deeply hurt. Can I say from all, Chris? Can she make a motion on all three
Yeah.
at one time?
Yes. Any other questions or discussions or nominees? If not, all those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Okay. And we've also got this item on here about signatures, but if we kept the same officer, we don't need to change signatures, so we just,
We'll have to change, we'll have to sign because of me.
okay.
Want me to make the motion?
To authorize signature. Yeah, that's fine.
To make a motion to authorize signatures of current superintendent, board president, board secretary on any financial documents.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Christie? Any other questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. The next item on the agenda is graduation ceremony for our new CHS graduates.
Good evening. My name is Therese Harris, and I'm the principal at Douglas Learning Academy. And thank you, everybody, friends and family, for coming out tonight to support the graduates. And thank you for this opportunity. It's always an honor and a privilege to stand up here and present the latest graduates. Tonight we had three. One of them is a professional horse trainer, and he actually grooms and trains horses for competition, so he's constantly out of town. So we believe that's where he is right now, and that's what he endeavors. He had told me he wanted to own his own business. Unfortunately, Fernando Lopez could not be here with us tonight, but we'll hold on to his stuff for him. Tonight, I attest as principal of Douglas that all three of these graduates have met all the requirements. They've passed all the testing and met all graduation requirements to receive a Cleveland High School diploma. And on behalf of Mr. McCandless and his staff and all the staff at Douglas, I'd like to introduce you to first Marco Campos. Marco is going to enter the Army, and the next step on his agenda is to take the ASVAB, and he hopes to serve as a mechanic in the U.S. Army. So congratulations. And next we have Amy. That's her little daughter who you saw greeting everybody at the front door. Her name's Niali. She's adorable. Amy is going to enroll at Lone Star College in Kingwood in the fall, and she wants to be an architect or a graphic designer because she's very creative, and she wants to use her talents and meet her desire to build something that others can use and appreciate. So congratulations to Amy Payne. Thanks again.
The next item we have on the agenda is our Air Force Junior ROTC instructor, Sergeant McIntyre, addressing the board regarding school dress code at the high school.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Senior Master Sergeant McIntyre, and I'm here. I want to be one of the first persons, one of the first teachers from Cleveland High School to make an oath of enlistment to Cleveland High School. When I joined the military, I had to take an oath. It says, I, Ronald McIntyre, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of officers appointed over me, according to the regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice, so help me God. And I want to make a pledge to Cleveland High School, and it says, I, Ronald A. McIntyre, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend Cleveland High School against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I will obey the orders of the principal and Cleveland ISD School Board and all officials appointed over me, according to the regulations and rules set forth by the Cleveland ISD School Board, so help me God. I've been in Cleveland for 15 years. In the past 15 years, I've been watching the school dress code. It hasn't really been enforced, and I want to be one of the first teachers, because in 15 years I've watched, we got some great students in Cleveland High School, great students. I don't blame the not enforcement of the dress code on the students. I kind of look at us teachers. I've been under many principals, and I fault us teachers for not backing the principal up. We all our teachers are going to have to take an oath of enlistment to our principal, the Cleveland High School Board, that we're going to do the very best job we can. There's nothing wrong with our students. We're in the newspaper, but we got some of the best students in here. In 15 years, this is the first year I haven't been cussed out. This is the first year, this is the best year I have had with watching a principal make me feel comfortable to be in that school, and the kids see the kid. Matter of fact, the reason I'm standing here is because I had a problem with my boss, and I went to see the principal to resolve it. And he sat there and he told me and my boss, it's not about you, it's not about him. If you guys can't do your job, I'll fire you both. That's why I'm standing here. I'm willing to back him up, because he not only cares, he cares about the students. And I kind of wrote this. It says, in the United States Air Force, if something doesn't work, you need to change it. This is a request that when you approve the new school in Hamlet, that you take into consideration that we need to be able to enforce it effectively. We can, if us teachers lead by example. If us teachers stand up and wear our ID cards every day, which sometimes we don't, and we do what we're supposed to do, our students should do it. We got some great kids in Cleveland High School. Them kids will follow. It's like, I heard this saying that it takes a village to raise a child. It's going to take 100 teachers to raise these kids in Cleveland High School, and I really believe that. And I believe that, I wrote a couple little notes that, but basically what I'm saying is, for 15 years I've been saying, take the hat off, take the hoodie off. It has gotten so much better. It has gotten so much better. When I got here, when I leave, I want to make Cleveland High School a better place. And right now, this principal that we got now has made it, improved it so much. I want to continue with that. I want it to be better next year. But it's going to take each and every one of us teachers to back him up. When we backing him up, we backing these students up. That's the most important. That's the only reason I'm here. I can care less about grown people. My job at school is to pay me for these students. We got some great students. And you know, when you're telling a young man or a young lady to take your hat off, ask you, like, this is the first year I never got cussed out. They're polite. But when they see us not wearing ID cards and doing what we're supposed to be doing, we have to lead by example. And I just want to be the first teacher at Cleveland High School to say that. And I hope the rest go along, not just Cleveland, all the other schools, that we're going to support our principal. When I got to Cleveland, I took this job. I said, this job is my life. Cleveland High School is my life. And I really wanted to see it better when I leave. And we got somebody here that I know is going to make it better. Thank you.
Thank you.
It should be next. Should be open session.
Is open session next on the agenda? Yeah, I've got reports on here. Okay, you wanna go ahead and do it? Next item on the agenda is open session. We have one person signed up to speak. We have Tammy Daniels. If you want to come forward, I'll read through the guidelines for our public comments. The board allots a time at each meeting. We ask that you try to keep your presentation to 3 minutes or less. The board can't actually deliberate or decide anything, but we can hear what you have to say and take it under advisement. Ms. Daniels, go ahead.
I'm here today to plead to allow our seniors that did not pass their tax test to be able to participate in the graduation ceremony, the walking ceremony. I don't know how many parents or students are here in regards to this. Okay. I believe there was about 13 students that did not pass the test and are not allowed to walk. So here's my speech, but I'm also here because I don't believe anybody else signed up to stand up for them as well. Since second grade, our son, Todd Daniels, has struggled in school. His second grade year is when he was diagnosed with ADD. As you may know, that has more to do with concentration versus hyperactivity. In 2007, after failing the 6th grade, we had an ARD meeting and determined he qualified for the 504 program. Under this program, he has been allowed to have certain exceptions when it comes to schoolwork and testing. This seemed to help a little. Although he still struggled every year and seemed to do well with his classroom work, he still struggled with testing. After talking to the counselors and the teachers again, we determined that he has test anxiety as well. That is when we concentrated more on his 504 to work around his testing instead of his regular classwork. Over the years, he has had trouble with all the tax testing, but the one that he struggles with the most is his math. He has attempted to take the math exit level exam 5 times, and the highest he has received is a 2077. In this past test, he scored a 2064. The required score to meet is 2100. So both times he was just 2 to 3 questions short of passing. This past test, he tried harder than he has ever tried to pass this test. With the help of his family, friends, and a wonderful teacher who took Todd and other students under his wing and provided extra study time, he was confident that he passed. Well, when he found out he failed, it was devastating. Just the thought of him not being able to walk. The night of graduation has caused major issues. The whole stress of the tax test has caused him to have anxiety and stress issues. He isn't the only student that has had some sort of meltdown over the tax test or even any other test that's required by the state. There's news reports often about these situations and how some students have major health issues from the stress of these tests. According to the TEA website, with the decision to allow students to walk across the stage is a school district decision and not something the state mandates. I just ask that you give my son and the other students that failed their exit level test the opportunity to walk across the stage with the rest of their class, even if it requires them to sign an agreement that they will come and take the retest this summer and any required tutorials offered. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Daniels. The next item on the agenda is reports. Dr. Myers?
Okay. Under reports, I'd like to give you, I think you have in front of you a copy of our enrollment, but our average daily attendance is 3487, and we're running about 94.93% as far as our percentage of attendance is concerned. I'd like to point out that we have our end of the year breakfast is coming up, and that's on June the 6th at 8 o'clock over at Southside Cafetorium. Of course, the graduation ceremony is June the 6th at 8 o'clock in Indian Stadium. And I'd ask the board to meet me at 7:30 there at the north entrance. The summer hours for the district are going to be as they have been in the past, beginning on Monday, June the 9th. We'll run from 7 to 5 o'clock, so we'll run 10-hour days and do 4 10s with Fridays off during the summer. And then our TASB Leadership Institute, as you're aware, is June the 19th through the 21st in San Antonio. And if you haven't checked off your sessions that you would like to go to, I can get those and provide those for you if you need them. Also in your package, you have all the reports from each one of the campuses and each one of the departments. If there's any questions about those, we can answer those now at this time.
Any questions about the central office or administrators' questions?
Can we ask Mr. McCandless his view on what she said? I mean, if it's something we need to pursue or we can wait till later.
Say that again.
So can we ask Mr. McCandless his view on what she said? Or is it something that we need to wait? No, just, something we need to.
We can't answer information. No. Is that what you're asking, Kristen?
Yeah.
Can we ask for more information pertaining to the graduates?
Take any action on it. We can do it, not officially do it now.
Okay.
Any questions about the reports from the central office staff, campus principals, or campus administrators?
I just had one question.
Okay.
But I guess this would address the Douglas Learning Academy principal. Hi. 12 a.m. slots available. Does that mean that you have 12 available slots in the morning for students now, or is this what you're saying we're going to have for next year?
For next year.
Okay.
With the veterans and the people that have moved away and stuff like that. So we'll be starting with 12 of these spots.
Okay. That's all. That's the only question I had.
Any other questions about the administrator or department head reports? If not, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is bills and payroll. Dr. Myers?
In your package, you have a copy of district's bills and payroll. I'd submit those to you for approval and recommend approval on those.
Any questions about the bills and payroll? If not, do I have a motion?
So moved.
A motion from Christie.
I
Do I have a
second.
Second from Sky. Any other questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. The next item on the agenda is the meeting minutes from the regular meeting of April the 21st. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Motion from Kelly. Do I have a second, please?
Second.
Second from Christie. Any corrections or discussion about the minutes? If not, all those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. The next item on the agenda is the DAEP recommendations. Dr. Myers?
Thank you. As you know, we're going to be forming our own DA, or having our own DAP here in the district for next year. And before you is the proposed staffing for that campus. What I would say is, normally on our student to staff ratio, we like to keep it at 8-1. That's about the correct ratio for student to staff. At the DAP, with the setup that you have here, or the proposal, I should say, that you have before you, that's about a 5-1 ratio. And in that setting, in that educational setting, that's probably more appropriate than an 8-1. That's going to be just about 40 students over there capacity for us in those 6 different classrooms. So I would recommend to the board that we go with a staffing model somewhere in this neighborhood. Actually, what I propose, so that we can keep that ratio to about 5-1 at the max.
Do I have a motion concerning DAEP?
So moved.
Do I have a second, please?
Second.
Second, Christie. Any questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor? Do you have a question,
Well,
Scott? Go ahead.
if the ABU, or are we gonna talk about that separately, or?
I was including the ABU unit in that as part of the DAP, but we can talk
Okay.
about that in that.
No, I was just saying that the 5-1, the total number of, that's included.
That includes the
Okay.
ABU because, and the reason I would say that, just for an explanation, is should at any point in time we not have ABU students in there, if they've leveled out,
Sure,
then we could utilize that staff in the DAP.
of course, okay, yeah.
Any other questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. The next item on the agenda is the revised academic calendar for the 2014-2015 school year. Dr. Myers?
I would present the calendar on page 72 in your board packet, the revised calendar for approval. And the reason being is that TEA, after we had adopted our calendar, came back and placed March the 31st through April the 1st as a testing week, with Good Friday on the 3rd being a makeup day for test. And we originally had that as a holiday on that day. So what we looked at with the District Improvement Committee was taking and moving that holiday to the 6th, the day after the Easter holiday, so that we would have that. And we had also had staff development during that time, and moving that to the 16th of February, which is President's Day, and that keeps the number of calendar days required by the state current, and at the same time provides us with a calendar that doesn't conflict with testing schedules with TEA. And that was no fault of the District Improvement Committee. It's something that occurred after the fact with TEA. I'm sorry?
No, I'm sorry. We don't have a choice, basically. We have to have that. I'm just curious, what was our attendance this year with having school on Good Friday?
That's not good.
Yeah.
The makeup day on Good Friday, and of course this President's Day on the 16th would be, it's a staff development day, but it would be a makeup day for students should we have bad weather. But the attendance on those days is traditionally not good. I'm not sure exactly what it was in Cleveland, but I bet it was somewhere around 80% or lower. And the poor thing about that, in my estimation, is that we can't apply for a waiver for that poor attendance day. So it really puts the district at a disadvantage. But with that being a TEA authorized makeup day for for TOS test or STAR test, I should say. I've been through so many of them, I can't get that name straight. For the STAR test, we're going to have to schedule it as a attendance day for us.
Okay. I understand. I was just curious if that was
I
something
do
TA
not,
was
I
mandating.
do not like that.
Right. Can we put that in the paper so the public will know we're really not that bad? It's not us.
I'm not in favor of going to school on Good Friday either, but we're not the driver in that. TEA
Okay.
is.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Myers.
Any other questions or discussion about the calendar? If not, all those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Did we, no, we didn't make a motion. We started
Okay.
asking questions. So I need a
Okay,
motion.
so be it.
Kelly?
I second.
All right.
I asked all the questions. Sorry.
All right. The next item on the agenda is the Gifted and Talented Handbook. Dr. Myers?
In your board packet, you have a copy of our Gifted and Talented handbook that's proposed before you. As you look through the handbook, obviously those things that are in red are the changes, and I would submit that handbook to you. I've looked at it and read through the changes. I don't see anything that would cause concern, but I'll entertain any questions that you may have and try to answer those. But I would recommend that we approve it.
Do we have a motion concerning the Gifted and Talented Handbook, please?
So moved.
Motion from Sky. Have a second, please.
Second.
Second, Christie. Any questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. The next item on the agenda is the 2014-2015 Indianet Handbook and Expectations. Dr. Myers?
In your packet is a copy of that Indianet handbook. I would draw your attention to page 151. Under item M, M, 3B. The only concern I have with the handbook or recommendation that I would have is it states under M3B, if a physical examination is incomplete or failed, you may not participate in any activities associated with the dance team until the physical is completed or passed. Item I there under B, or 1 rather I should say, this means that you will not come to practice and will receive demerits each day that you miss. My suggestion to the board would be that we strike to the part in regard to receiving demerits, because if you have a student that has failed a physical due to some type of physical ailment such as a heart condition or something like that, I don't think we should limit that student from being a part of that organization just because they did not pass that physical. So it'd be my suggestion to the board that we approve the handbook with the exception of that clause in M3B1 where it states that they received demerits.
But leave in, they don't come to practice.
Ma'am?
But leave in, they won't come to practice.
You know, probably need to go ahead and strike that too, I would suggest, in that, and that's, I had in there to strike both of them, and I messed that up, sorry about that. But I would strike all of that as far as the B and the number one, because they should be able to come to practice.
If I'm not mistaken, they have to be released though, don't they? So that, they would have that anyway.
They have to be released to practice, but not to come to
come
practice.
to practice, right.
So they can still be a part of the organization and come to practice and help and be a part if they don't pass their physical, but they would not be able to practice until they did have a clean physical.
I agree. Is the
So-
drill team director here? Okay.
Okay, so to clarify, we're gonna strike B and 1
That would be
under
my suggestion.
B
M3.
and 1, okay.
Yes,
So we're gonna strike that whole section.
yeah, that whole
Okay.
section.
So, just say I make a motion to approve the handbook, but exclude section, page 151, section 3B and I.
Yes.
Okay. Can I
Do
make
we,
that motion?
do
No,
we
but
want to
I don't-
strike it or reword it?
Because I don't know that that's, I mean, it says if a physical examination is incomplete or failed, you may not participate in any activities associated with the dance team until it's completed or passed. Do you want to strike that, Dr. Myers?
I think so. I think we strike that because if it's an incomplete examination, if the doctor
Then they can't
did
do
not
anything.
complete the examination, or there's a glitch as far as the physician is concerned, I don't know that we punish a kid by not allowing them to come to practice. They may not be able to practice, but they can be there and see what goes on.
No, but it says you may not participate. B3B just says you may not participate in any activities associated with dance until the physical is completed or passed. You don't want to remove that.
I'm
Well,
thinking,
if they can't participate, can they attend?
that's what I'm thinking, they can
Is
attend,
Is
but
participation attendance or is participation practicing?
I would think participation would be practicing, right?
I don't know.
I don't know, the way that I reads it says that
What do you
you
think?
will not participate and will receive demerits each day you miss.
I think that
That's
needs,
kinda, I think
think
it's
that
all
should
kind
go.
of, I think it needs to be rewritten.
I think it needs to be reworded.
Yeah, I agree.
They can be in attendance but not be
can-
physically active.
Okay, that's not a problem. We can bring that back to the board
I'm sorry.
with better wording. Not a problem.
Cause it looks like it says, you know, they're not coming to practice, but if they don't come to practice and just sit there, then they're gonna get a demerit.
But you can't say
That's
if they
kinda-
haven't passed.
I wanna,
Say that.
it concerns me to err on the side of the student.
Uh-huh.
I understand.
From the standpoint of a health issue or a physician issue that is no fault of theirs.
Okay.
Okay. So, do we want to postpone action on this item until the next meeting? Do I have a motion to postpone?
So moved.
Do I have a second, please?
Second.
Is that Sky? Okay, all those any other questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor of postponing, motion passes 5-0.
I'll bring bring that back to the board, the June meeting.
The next item on the agenda concerns the textbook adoption committee recommendations for science and technology textbooks.
Right, in your package, you have a listing of those people that served on the textbook committee, and I'll turn that over to Ms. Graham this time.
Good afternoon, evening. Mr. Hoyt actually shepherded this whole Proclamation 24 through the process, had the meetings, brought in the publishing companies. I'm the Johnny-come-lately that just tied it up at the end when Mr. Hoyt returned to Eastside as interim principal, so that's why I'm standing here. We came up with our recommendations for science, grades K through 12, and I went ahead and I included some information on this in the attachment, just so that you know what the curriculum looked like. We decided to go with STEM Scopes, which is developed by Rice University. Many of our teachers at different campuses have attended the Rice Institute during the summer for science teaching, and they came back and they've been using this curriculum for a while and sharing it with other teachers. It was an overwhelming choice for all of the campuses to go with STEM Scopes. For math, we only had grades K through 8 with Proclamation 2014, and the choice was Houghton Mifflin Report. Again, I put something, this is just lifted from the internet. You're more than welcome to look and see more of what we've gone with. For technology apps, I listed this by campus because this was how it was going to be decided, and then when everyone submitted their choices by campus, you'll see that they all chose the same except for high school. So these are the recommendations that the textbook committees from the different campuses are bringing for your approval.
Do I have a motion concerning textbook adoption?
So moved.
A motion from Christie.
And this is just these, it's not the bills after, right?
Pardon?
You said that's a different section. I'm just looking at that. And this is just,
Do I have a second, please?
I second.
Second from Sky. Any questions or discussion?
I have a question. What's the alternative for the high school?
For the high school, with the high school, they have so many different CAPE classes, and some of them already have different textbooks. Some of them get their textbooks not through the instructional materials allotment, but through CAPE funds, so it's separate. So really, this was just the one that we needed to adopt.
I just have one question. On the math, is this directly from the website, this little, because it says understanding of Common Core state standards.
We're getting the one that's specifically for Texas.
Okay, that's what I want to make sure.
I was actually on the page that said Texas, but it's still printed out that
It's
way.
still
so,
printed, okay. I just, that always stands out in my mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? If not, all those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. The next item on the agenda is requisition number 13149, purchase of Edgenuity Virtual Classroom. Dr. Myers?
Yep, we've been using a different product as far as the virtual classroom is concerned, and that's Odysseyware. And each year we've been paying $68,000 for Odysseyware. And what we can do with Edgenuity is essentially provide the same services with the opportunity to add services later, as far as,
So you can
Online.
streamline it to what you actually need.
correct. And, we can pick and choose what we wanna offer from that. And as a result, if we go with a 3-year contract with them, and I've used Edgenuity before, the total contract is at $98,000, so essentially over 3 years, we save about $90,000, by going with Edgenuity as opposed to the Odyssey-ware. And, I've never had a problem with Edgenuity. I think it's good, and it gives us a smorgasbord of things that we can pick and choose from if we need to. So I would recommend that we go with the Edgenuity instead of Odyssey-ware.
All right, do you have a motion, please?
So moved.
Motion from Sky. Have a second, please?
A second.
Tammy? Any other questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. The next item on the agenda is requisition 13279, Region 4 curriculum. Dr. Myers?
The Region Center, Region 6 is who we've used for curriculum in the past, and we've utilized that curriculum consortium. What you have before you right now is essentially the same as we've had in the past in dealing with the scope and sequence, along with some other, and you can see what the Platinum package has there. A lot of opportunities for training in the math collaborative and things of that nature. Since most schools our size or smaller do not have the opportunity or the resources to write their own curriculum, this aligns with the text very well, and I would recommend that we go with it. I don't think for the $26,000 a year that we'll be able to write our own curriculum and continue that way.
Do I have a motion concerning the curriculum?
Make a motion.
Motion from Kelly. Have a second, please?
This one's, yes, second.
Second from Christie. Any questions or discussion?
I do.
Okay.
Dr. Myers, what about the C-scope curriculum? Where does that leave us with that?
The C-scope essentially gone away.
Okay, well, I'm glad for that, but I was just curious.
Yeah, the curriculum collaborative for the Region Center is probably the answer to the C-scope with all the objectionable materials taken out of it.
Good.
And we haven't had any, I guess, blowback or any opposition to the curriculum consortium like we had with the C-scope lessons. And I've never encouraged, or I shouldn't say that, I've never made teachers use the C-scope lessons, but they're there as a bank if they wanted to. But we don't have those anymore, so it's kind of moot.
Good.
Any other questions? If not, all those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. The next item on the agenda is requisition numbers 13210 and 13219 and 13260 and 13261 concerning purchase of Dell and Google Chrome. Dr. Myers?
With our federal title monies, Ms. Toole and the principals that sat down and looked at technology and what direction probably we need to go with technology. And one of the things that everybody had thought was getting technology in the hands of the kids with regard to that, especially when we look at some of the textbook materials that we're adopting right now that are online and so forth. And we'll have to transition from paper and so forth to online. But at the same time, putting putting Chromebooks in the hands of kids so that they can utilize them in the classroom. The units that you see here before you are all student units, with the exception of 10 of them that the principals have requested for the instructional coaches to utilize. So all of those are student computers, and I would recommend that we go ahead and purchase those computers and get them this summer and get them in the hands of kids next fall.
Do you have a motion, please?
So we're approving all of these at once.
Yeah, that's the way it's
Yeah, these three.
listed in the
I have a question.
agenda.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
Sure.
Why are there more for middle school than there are for high school?
The middle school wanted to spend more of their chapter money on computers than did the other schools.
Okay, you got a code number, 001 and 41.
Where are the first set of things we bought for AIMs? Do you know?
Okay, say that again. I didn't get it, I'm sorry.
The middle school chose to spend more money on technology
Okay.
than did the other schools.
I got you, okay.
The high school already has some, don't they?
Yeah.
Did they ever put all the rest of them?
That was my question too. Are we utilizing those?
I can't answer that. Where's Mr. Gonzalez?
Right there.
Mr. Gonzalez, can you answer that question for the board?
Are we utilizing what we've already purchased?
We have 320 of the Galaxy tablets on campus that we've gone through an inventory session. They have been offered to the teachers for use, but due to the end of the year, not all teachers are using them, but some are. So yes, that is in partial use. And that's one reason we purchased less of the Chromebooks, because we have more of the tablets than the middle school does.
But next year we'll start from the very beginning.
100% in use of all technology, yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion.
Motion Kelly. Have a second, please.
Second.
Second Christie. Any other questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda is requisition number 13360 concerning Achieve 3000. Dr. Myers.
Achieve 3000 is a reading remediation program that I believe the district started using last year. If you look on page 193, it basically tells you how many slots each one of the campuses are receiving. The high school campus is receiving 50 slots, but there's 3 of those campuses, I believe, that are 675 students, and that's divided up between Cleveland Middle School, East Side, and North Side. The question that I had was, why not South Side? And that's because it does not reach that low. So I've talked to Ms. Silva about it, and she seems to believe that if we are diligent in its use, it's worth it. So for $116,000, we will be diligent in its use. And I would recommend that we continue with that based on Ms. Silva's recommendation.
We're talking about just licensing, right? Just licensing is what we're talking about, right?
It's an online reading program. They go in there, read an article, and then they take the rest of it.
Right,
It's the full
it's
program.
designed individually for the student's reading level so that it remediates and those students are individually placed at their appropriate level for reading. It's essentially used to accelerate their reading and their apprehension of reading.
Are we gonna go back to AR or are we still?
I have not sprung that on the principals yet. Cat's out of the bag now.
Sorry.
Yes, ma'am, we are gonna utilize, accelerated reader,
Okay,
and,
good.
that's probably something we'll talk about this summer.
That was just my question, because I know just from personal experience, some kids like AR, some people like
This
Achieve
is
3000. It's just
primarily
kinda,
nonfiction.
That's
right?
it's
nonfiction.
nonfiction art.
Nonfiction.
Yeah.
Nonfiction.
And that
But we
just
will,
doesn't get all the kids.
we will implement accelerated reader at, particularly our elementary levels.
Okay.
It becomes less effective in my
Right.
experience at the high
Sure.
school and secondary levels.
Right.
But yes, ma'am, at the elementary schools we will.
I just have another question. Didn't we just buy some licensing not too long ago? Didn't we buy some licensings not too long ago that was for,
It's possible, if I remember correctly, the licensing you're talking about is for the, I think it's for the Odyssey where the Douglas uses, because we were running low, is that right, for high
Okay,
school?
so-
Were we
Are
running
we still
low?
gonna use that
I think
there?
and
we
we're not gonna,
expanded some
okay, so we're not gonna use that anymore then?
Well, I mean, we're
Start
currently
next
still
year.
using it.
But we're not gonna use
This is all
Odyssey,
next year.
but we're not gonna use Odyssey Ware even at Douglas next year.
We're moving to Edgenuity.
Right, everywhere.
We're just gonna finish our contract
Sure,
with Odyssey.
okay.
And I think, unless I'm mistaken, Sandra, I think the license we talked about related to that.
I think what I'm talking about is some new computers that we bought that we had to get licensings for. Yeah, didn't we get some new
She's talking about the
computers?
tablets, and then we couldn't
We're not able
service
to use them or is there some reason we're not using them or, that's what I'm referring to.
The AirWatch? Tablets.
Do you have tablets at high school right now that you
Yes.
are unable to use?
Well, we were not able to use them in prior months due to an AirWatch system and configuration of the tablet. So yes, that's true, there was a hold on that. But all of that has been corrected in the last month, I would say.
Okay,
But that's not a licensing issue. Every tablet you buy has an operating system on it,
Okay.
so you don't, I'm a little hard pressed to remember which licenses you
I
talked.
just thought
do
that
recall.
something came up later that we
did.
were failed to be informed on and it was like it all of a sudden came up, but I might be wrong. So
You're
there
not
am I.
wrong. It did.
We may not be, I just may not remember correctly.
Okay, it's just I see licensing again and it's like, oh, did I just see that just recently? I think I did, but okay, yeah, okay.
Any other questions or discussion? If not, do we have a motion, please?
So moved.
A motion from Kelly. Have a second, please. Second from Tammy. All those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. And the next item on the agenda is proposed DB local policy. Dr. Myers.
For first reading, under DB local, I visited with the board about this policy and would like to make that change under administrative positions that it applies to as the superintendent and the athletic director.
So this is the first reading, so no action.
That's correct.
tonight.
Yes, sir.
Any questions or discussion?
I didn't understand what it meant when it says after the initial one-year probationary contract period, additional employee contract shall be for 3 or more years, not to exceed 5. What does that mean?
I'm struggling to find where you're at.
Second paragraph,
Second paragraph under
Condition.
condition of employment.
conditional employment.
After the initial one-year probationary contract, additional employee contract shall be for 3 or more years.
Which you can
So
get
is
a 3,
that-
4, or a 5-year contract after your 1-year probationary.
I do not know, I did not look at that portion. To be honest, I
Yeah.
didn't look at that portion of the policy. was concerned with the residency requirements, and
And
so
this is-
I can't answer that. It's
Yeah.
something that was adopted.
Yeah, and this is the first reading, so
Yeah, we
it's
can.
really not an issue right
No.
now. Okay.
This is the only thing that changed.
Any other questions or discussion about the policy? That'll be on the agenda for action next month. The next item on the agenda is the second reading for CISD Policy Update 99. Dr. Myers?
I've read through the policy update, and I've read through particularly the local policies as far as their considerations and so forth. I don't see anything, most of it is dealing with coming into compliance with House Bill 5. There is one exception, and that is under local policy EIF, which we'll deal with next, as far as what the graduation requirements are for Cleveland ISD. But I would recommend to the board that we adopt that policy update 99.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to.
Motion from Kelly. Do I have a second, please?
Just a second.
Second from Christie. Any questions or discussion? Not, all those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. The next item on the agenda is the EIF local policy. Dr. Myers?
Under EIF, essentially it's talking about what is required with regard to coursework for graduation. And essentially this policy mirrors what we've had in the past in the district, and that is that we do not require any additional requirements with regard to graduation other than what the state requires. It also goes in and begins to talk about the foundation program and those with endorsements, without endorsements, and distinguished level achievement. And again, it requires the basics that the state requires. So I would recommend that to you. I think at some point in the future, as we advance, we may want to come back to that policy and take a look at it as we advance academically, but at this particular time, I think this is appropriate.
Do I have a motion concerning the EIF local policy?
So,
Motion from Sky. And a second, please.
second.
Second from Christie. Any questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor? Motion passes 6-0. The next item on the agenda is the exit level tax results. Dr. Myers?
I'm going to ask Ms. Graham to bring those to you, our testing coordinator for the district.
Okay, I'm going to start with TELPAS. I don't know if that's what came up first on your reports. TELPAS is the test we give to our English learners. I gave some information there. I wasn't sure how familiar you are with the TELPAS assessment. The students who are English learners, they're assessed holistically in listening, speaking, and writing. So they do writing samples, and their teachers then give them grades on that. For the grades 2 through 12, they also have a reading test, which is an online reading test. When they're scored, they're either beginning, intermediate, advanced, or advanced high. Ideally, the goal would be that our students would move through each of the proficiencies in 4 years. For students who come to us as asylum refugees or with interrupted schooling, the state says that they may well take longer. It could be a 5-year. So when you look in that last column there, it's looking at the number of students who progressed at least one proficiency level in the year from their scores from the year before, which is why there's no reporting for the kindergartners. There's nothing to base this on. So if you look at those numbers, that's kind of how we can measure the success of our program. I thought the graphic would be helpful after I put it in there. I'm not sure it is or not. I think what you're seeing is that we have a lot of beginners in the lower levels, and as they progress through, we start to see more that are advanced and advanced high. Bearing in mind that not all of our students come to us at kindergarten as beginners. We have students who move in at every grade level, so we're always going to have beginners at every grade level. Do you have any questions for me on that first page?
I'm glad you explained it. I felt like I needed to be a testing coordinator to understand it.
I kind of get carried away with my graphs and charts, I'm sorry. Did it clear it
I
clear it up
understand,
a little
yes,
bit? Okay. If you look at the second page on that, the second tab, that is just showing the number of students that have been assessed with the TELPAS over the course of the last 4 years. This is clearly a growing segment of our population, and for Cleveland ISD success, we are going to have to work on ways for those students to be successful in our schools. These are students who are struggling with their English language, and we need to provide for them the supports that is necessary. So that was just kind of an FYI. Do you have any other questions about TELPAS? Okay, we go on to our exit level text. We do have some students, as you heard from the audience earlier, we do have some students who are not going to be able to walk at this point because they haven't successfully passed all of their exit level tests. And you can see those numbers. Again, I'm using the same format, but now we have a new person on the board, so let me explain. The first number shows how many met the standard. In parentheses, it's the number of people who actually took it. So if you look there, grade 11 ELA at the high school, we had 2 students who took the test. Unfortunately, neither of them were successful. And again, I like to look at the good side. We now have 3 students at the high school who are cleared for graduation, at least from their assessment interview. I added, are there any questions about exit level tax? I did add in, when I presented to you the first administration 5th and 8th grade scores last time, I only just had those scores. I wasn't able to give you any more information. What I have done now is gone back and given you a comparison with the state and with 2 local school districts who shared their scores with us so that you can look at our comparison with those. I like to do that. I don't always have it first time I present. Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Next item on the agenda is recess, and the board will convene in executive session.
Sometime.